Welcome, everybody. We're going to let a couple more people get in here. We're going to get this thing started. Get everything set up for us real quick. NBA draft is in the books, baby. The NBA draft is in the books, so we got to cover all of the winners, the losers. We got to go over NBA free agency, which technically starts tomorrow. Listen, man, we got a lot to cover, so come on in, get settled in. We're going to go to get this thing started. Give me a couple more minutes. Let me just get everything set up for us. Now, remember, this right here is a members only chat. So a lot of people can see it, but unfortunately, only the people who's joined the membership will be able to participate in the question and answer session. So if you haven't joined, you got a couple seconds now. Go down, hit that join now button, sign up. Come on, let's go and get into this question and answer. We're going to get this thing started real soon. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Here. I don't know about y'all, man, but after seeing that draft last night, man, listen, that right there to me was one of the craziest drafts that I've seen in a long time. I mean, like I said, we're gonna get into it, but to me, especially at the top of the draft, it was so. I'm sitting there looking at a lot of these moves that are being made by some of these GMs. I'm just like, is anybody watching college basketball? I don't know. We're gonna talk about it, but to me, it seemed like there's a lot of people that didn't watch college basketball last year, and we got to touch bases on that. And I'm talking about some of the scouts, some of the GMs, because there was some big misses in that draft, especially at the top of the draft. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. All right, listen, man. Welcome to Journey of a Ballaholic. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in. Listen, it's 4 o'clock, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start this thing off. To me, the 2020 NBA draft, which was last night, which was the first virtual draft we've ever seen, I think was done well. And then we got the free agency that starts tomorrow. So one of the things I wanted to start with, and like I said, we're going to be discussing a lot of different topics. We're going to go over my biggest winners. We're going to cover the biggest losers of the draft, who I think was the biggest steal of the draft. Also, we're going to talk about the team that I think had the best draft day move. So these weren't necessarily the players that they picked, but it was potential trades that they made, and a combination of the trades, the free agents, excuse me, not the free agent signs, but the trades as well as the draft picks that was made. So we're going to talk about that, and then we also got to talk about the free agency rumors because there's a lot of rumors out there as far as people who've already been traded, and then some trades that happened that actually supposedly are now being undone, and some names that are coming back on the open market, and then we got to talk about some of the big names out there. So let's go ahead and just dive right into this thing. And for me, I got to start with the draft. We got to start with the NBA draft. And the biggest winners to me, like I said, first of all, before I give my biggest winners, if you missed my video where I discussed my top 5 players in the draft, that's where everybody's got to start with. Let's start there for a second. The top 5 players in my draft, I ranked them as number 5 being Denny Avicii. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I keep messing his name up. But he's the young man from, he's the Israeli. He was over there playing for Maccabi, the small forward, very skilled. To me, I ranked him as the 5th best player in this draft. I ranked number 4, Obi Toppin, as the 4th best player, big man out of Dayton. I mean, just an absolute, deer in headlight running up and down the court. He's like a younger Mark Stoudemire. Number 3, I ranked James Wiseman. Number 2, I ranked Anthony Edwards. And number 1, I had LaMelo Ball. So that was my top 5 players coming into the draft. Now, as we all know, the way that the draft shook out, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they selected Anthony Edwards with the number 1 pick. Now, once again, even though I don't think he's necessarily the best player in this draft, he was number 2, and I thought he was a great fit for Minnesota. When you have D'Angelo Russell, who's a lead guard, I totally understand selecting him. So I understand that pick. For me, when Golden State was on the clock and they picked James Wiseman, I understood that. Now, we got some breaking Golden State news that we got to discuss as well. Unfortunately, Klay Thompson, tore his Achilles injury, not on his left leg. That's where he had his ACL injury from last year. He tore his Achilles on his right leg. See, a lot of times what people don't understand is that when you're coming off of a leg injury, a lot of times you overcompensate to be able to, as you're working, trying to get back, you overcompensate on your opposite leg, which kind of puts that leg in danger. And that's unfortunately what seems to may have happened as Klay Thompson was out working out, just kind of playing pickup basketball. And unfortunately, he wound up tearing his Achilles on his right leg, which is not going to have him out for the entire 2020-2021 season. So the Golden State Warriors, that takes a big hit to them. We're going to get into some of that a little bit later. But they, at number 2, decided to take James Wiseman out of Memphis. Now, he only played a couple games in Memphis, but he's an absolute big man sensation. He can shoot the ball, he can play inside, but his biggest asset to this Golden State Warriors team was going to be his elite rebounding and his elite rim protection. And I think they're going to need that to be able to compete when you got big men like Nikola Jokic, you got Anthony Davis, Nurkic, you got Kristaps Porzingis, you got so many big men. And just in the Western Conference, you don't even have to go to the East. Just in the Western Conference that the Golden State Warriors were going to be competing against. So I understood the pick at number 2. However, that meant that the person who I had as the best player in this draft, which was LaMelo Ball, he fell down to number 3, which is the Charlotte Hornets. So I've got to start with the Charlotte Hornets because to me, they're the winner of this entire draft. And it's not just picking LaMelo Ball. Once again, getting LaMelo Ball to me was an absolute steal for them at number 3, even though he's not the biggest steal of the draft. But I think it was a perfect fit. LaMelo Ball is the star that Charlotte Hornets need. You got to remember this. Michael Jordan has been owning this team, has been making a lot of bad draft choice. Seems like year after year, it seems. And so not really getting a lot of luck from the Charlotte Hornets. This right here was like a little bit of luck for them to be able to get LaMelo Ball to fall into their lap. Now, they have point guard Terry Rozier that they just signed from Boston. They have the young improved Deontay Graham, who's at that guard position as well. So I love their backcourt, but their coach, I can't remember his name, what is his name? Jorgo, whatever his name is. I can't pronounce his name. The coach recently was asked about LaMelo Ball and how he would fit in with this backcourt. And what I loved about what he said is that we're going to play LaMelo Ball with this backcourt. And you think about this, say, well, hold on, LaMelo Ball is a point guard, right? He's one of the best passers in the entire draft. So seeing him or hearing him not say LaMelo Ball is going to be starting a point guard, I actually like that. You got to remember, LaMelo Ball, even as a point guard, he's like 6'7", almost 6'8". He got legit size. It's almost like Sean Livingston from a size and a body frame style. He's going to be potentially playing at the point forward, as the coach said, that point wing position, and he's going to play alongside of Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham. Now, at that the big man spot, they had P.J. Washington, which I think was a good pickup for them in the past. And then at number 32 in the second round pick, they wanted up going out there and get Vernon Carey out of Duke University. Now, everybody knows I'm a big Duke University fan, so I watched I watched every Duke basketball game, and Vernon Carey, I think, was a very underrated pick. Now, he's not super athletic. He's almost, and don't get me wrong when I'm saying this, he has an almost like an Elton Brand type of game where he's a below the basket type of game. He can dunk on you, but he's like a below the basket kind of game, but he's very skilled. And his size at 6'10", 260, great hands, great IQ, his ability to even step out from the outside and shoot. I love that pick with getting Vernon Carey, but they didn't stop there. I think they had at number 42, they wanted up going out there. I think they made a trade to get the 42nd pick, and they wanted up picking up Kentucky big man Nick Richards. So he gives you a different type of skill set, almost like a Willie Cauley-Stein type big man. You can put him out there, and I think that right there was a great pickup for the Charlotte Hornets. I love the move that they made. To me, they were the biggest winners in this draft. Now, if they're the biggest winners, who's the biggest losers, you may ask? It goes right from pick number 3 to pick number 4. At pick number 4, the most surprising and to me the most bonehead pick of the entire draft was the Chicago Bulls deciding they're going to pick Patrick Williams. Now, check this for a second. Patrick Williams at number 4. You could have checked, I don't care how many mock drafts you checked. There's not many people that would have expected Patrick Williams to be the 4th pick in this draft. When you had guys, remember, Patrick Williams is like a 6'8", 225. He's a forward, right? And if the Chicago Bulls understand they've got Zach LaVine, right? You've got Kobe down there. So you got guards. So I understand them wanting to get a forward. And you've got Lauri Markkanen, you've got Wendell Carter Jr. So I understand them saying, okay, we're going to try to get somebody in the 3 position. I can understand that. To me, personally, I would have taken somebody different. But the guy I think that they definitely should have taken if they wanted to go with the small forward was Denny from Israel. He would have been the perfect person for them to draft at that fourth spot if it wasn't for the guy who I think was the ultimate steal of this draft, which we'll discuss in a bit. But the Chicago Bulls taking Patrick Williams, who was a freshman at the Florida State University, who didn't even start for Florida State. Patrick Williams averaged 9 points and 4 rebounds off the bench in 1 year for Florida State. So you're telling me that a guy who couldn't even crack the starting lineup for the Florida State Seminoles is now worthy of the number 4 pick in the draft? The fourth pick and Wendell Carter Jr. for the second pick, that never materialized. But if you're gonna stay at 4 and you want Patrick Williams, trade back in the draft. You could have gotten him for a lot less money, and you could have gained assets to get the same guy that nobody would have taken at number 4. Akko, what's going on? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the chat, man. Let me know if you got any questions about the NBA draft. If you got any questions about free agency, anything, let me know. But right now, we're just going over my recap on the biggest winners and the biggest losers from last night. Like I said, the biggest winners were the Charlotte Hornets, and we're discussing right now my biggest losers, which was the Chicago Bulls picking Patrick Williams number 4, when the reality was he was not worthy of a number 4 pick. Now, the Chicago Bulls, they had the 4th pick, but then at 5, I understood this move a little bit more where the Cleveland Cavaliers decided they wanted to go out there and get Okoro, who's one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in the draft. But the Detroit Pistons saw he was the 4th best player that I had coming into this draft, and he fell to number 8. And I'm gonna be honest with you, in some of the group chats that I'm on social media, it was a New York Knicks fans that I was talking to who hoped that this would happen. And I told him, I said, there's nowhere in the world that Obi Toppin, big man from Dayton, player of the year from Dayton, would be able to drop to number 8. Lo and behold, leave it up to the Chicago Bulls to be that team that needed a forward that did not get Obi Toppin or go international. So if you're not going to get the college player of the year, at least go international. This guy Denny would have been perfect for them. So the New York Knicks, who, I mean, listen, their ownership, their front office has been very maligned. However, they made got away with a ransom as far as getting the biggest steal of the draft of Obi Toppin. Checking it. If you want to know who Obi Toppin is, just go back and look at, for anybody who's a little younger that may not know his game, look at Amari Stoudemire. Pull up some of Amari Stoudemire's highlights when he was with the Phoenix Suns. Actually, he's an assistant coach right now with the Brooklyn Nets in his first year. He is a monster, an athletic freak. On a fast break, I've seen Obi Toppin go between his legs, windmill dunk on a fast break in the game. Like his athleticism, his wingspan, his size, his gait that he runs with is special. His special. So I love that pick for them. And even the Washington Wizards. I got to give the Washington Wizards a little credit. Now, I can't necessarily give them credit for making it a great pick, but they definitely got a steal in the draft. That's getting, at number 9, getting Avicii to fall in their laps. Once again, if you got John Wall, you got Bradley Beal, you need to fill that small forward spot. The best small forward to me in this draft was Denny Avicii, and they wound up getting him. We'll get some breaking news. James Johnson traded to OKC. So Minnesota veteran James Johnson to OKC. So listen, man, I think those were the biggest winners and the biggest losers, and that's my biggest steal of the draft was Obi Toppin going to the New York Knicks. Now, once again, he's a New York kid, so you can see the emotion on his face. You can see he absolutely loved being that pick, and I think it was an amazing pick for that team and for that franchise. And they also made some moves today where they wound up getting rid of Bobby Portis Jr. They got rid of Taj Gibson. So that log jam at that power forward spot, they got rid of 2 of those guys. So now you're looking at Obi Toppin and Julius Randle are left at that power forward spot. And then you also have Mitchell Robinson, who's their big man. Now, Mitchell Robinson to me was a guy that, when he came out in the draft, as a Laker fan, I wanted the Lakers to draft him. Unfortunately, we went with Mo Wagner, but that was the guy I wanted, and he's turned out to be an elite rim protector. Obi Toppin, his one weakness is he's not a great defender. But if you got Mitchell Robinson behind you, he'll help make up and clean up on a lot of the mistakes that Obi Toppin may make as a young big man trying to guard some of these forwards out in the game. So I love that pick for them. Now, let's go ahead and shift over gear to the best draft day moves. Now, once again, actually, before I do that, I do got to pay a little respect to the Sacramento Kings because they wound up getting Tyrese Halliburton. And this young kid right here, man, when you put him in that backcourt with De'Aaron Fox, it was literally the perfect pick. And I thought the San Antonio Spurs, which as great as they are at being able to identify talent, I thought they were going to draft him. They passed on him. And they let the Sacramento Kings get the player that they should have gotten. So you got to give the Sacramento Kings some credit for getting the steal right there as well at number 12. So with that being said, I think another guy you want to also keep an eye out for, even though I'm a Duke fan, I got to give him credit, Cole Anthony. Now, Cole Anthony coming into North Carolina, meaning coming out of high school, before he entered North Carolina, he was a consensus top 3 to 5 pick in the draft. A consensus top 3 to 5 pick. Now, that's Greg Anthony's son, who played 1 year at North Carolina. He wasn't as efficient as he would have liked to be. And in all honesty, I think the North Carolina system didn't really fit his skill set, and he just really didn't have a great freshman season. But the talent is there. I mean, the kid's got super bounce. He's super confident. His handle is tight. So I like him going to Orlando. I think that'll be a good fit for him. So it was another pickup that I think that was really good with Orlando Magic getting him at number 15 outside of that lottery. Now, let's move over to my biggest draft day moves. Also, remember, if you got any questions, let me know in the comment chat as well. But my biggest draft day moves and the team that I think had the best as far as transactions on draft day, man, you got to tip your hat to I'm going to call him just Mr. Moves. He makes stuff happen. And in his first year, it hasn't even been a full, I don't even know if he's been on the clock for a whole month yet. Daryl Morey of the Philadelphia 76ers. Listen, man, the moves that he made yesterday were literally some of the perfect moves that team needed based on their roster. Remember this. Philadelphia 76ers are a team that has 2 legitimate stars. And if you want to count Tobias Harris a star, you can say 3, maybe 2.5 for my space players. You got 2 in a possible, right? But definitely 2 legitimate stars and a 1 superstar in Joel Embiid for sure. And so all right, we're back. Okay. Sorry about that. But going back to the Philadelphia 76ers, the Philadelphia 76ers needed shooting. Now, you got to go back and remember that when they had J.J. Redick and they had Jimmy Butler, they let those guys go, and they lacked that shooting last year. Well, the moves that Daryl Morey made, man, yesterday, he traded Al Horford, and that horrendous contract that Al Horford has, traded him over to OKC, who Sam Presti he's like the lord of the body. He went out there. Oh, I lost the connection again. Are we there? Let me make sure this signal, my signal straight. All right, so Daryl Morey went out there and traded Al Horford away to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Danny Green and his expiring contract. Now, the reason that's so big is the fact that Danny Green, even though he's making $15 million, it is an expiring deal, but he's a 3-and-D player, and that's exactly what the Philadelphia 76ers needed. So you bring Danny Green in at that shooting guard's position. He's able to defend on that perimeter, as well as he's able to knock down threes. Now, I know he struggled last year. It wasn't his best year. He wasn't as accurate as he had been in years past. But Danny Green can still shoot. You know, he's on his decline, but Danny Green can play and he can shoot. And he showed that he's a champion as he's the only player to win back-to-back championships, meaning Toronto, he won in 2019, and then with the Lakers in 2020. So when it comes to Danny Green, I love that move. But he didn't stop there. He wound up going out there and getting a point guard that they needed, because remember, Ben Simmons had been playing point guard, but that's not really what he is. He's more of a point forward. You know, he's more of a guy that needs to play a little bit more off the ball as a secondary playmaker instead of being your primary playmaker until he's able to get a legitimate jump shot. So seeing So seeing Daryl Morey go out there and trade away Josh Richardson over to the Dallas Mavericks for Seth Curry, who was the best 3-point shooter in the NBA last year, that was perfect. Now you got Seth Curry at the 1, you've got Danny Green at the 2, Tobias Harris at the 3, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and then he didn't stop there. At number 21, he went out there and drafted Tyrese Maxey from Kentucky. That gives them bench depth. So you got Tyrese Maxey as well as Matisse Thybulle coming off your bench on that perimeter. Man, they got some young dogs out there, man. Thybulle last year was one of the best defenders. Basically, on the first perimeter defenders, he's one of the best defenders in the league last year. And he is going to get better this year. You bring in Tyrese Maxey, who's a combo guard who can basically do it all. I love this move for them. So the Philadelphia 76ers, for me, when you want to start talking about the power rankings in the Eastern Conference, they took a big jump yesterday. Adding, and it wasn't major moves. These are kind of moves that kind of went under the radar when you added Seth Curry, and then when you added Danny Green, and then added Tyrese Maxey. Those were kind of under the radar moves. It's not like a big names or big splashes, but they were the perfect moves that they needed to surround their big three. So I love the moves that the Philadelphia 76ers made, and we're gonna be doing some videos about how I'm ranking the Eastern Conference, how I'm ranking my Western Conference, and who's going to be my favorites to come out of each conference. We're going to be doing those videos soon. But I'll tell you this, the Philadelphia 76ers definitely jumped into a contender status based on those moves yesterday. Now, let's go ahead and move over to some of the moves that right now that we got out there. Where, once again, free agency starts tomorrow. Free agency starts tomorrow. So that we're going to see big name signings. We're going to see players being dropped, players opting into contracts. We're going to have players opting out of the contracts. What we know so far and some of the trades that have already happened is the Phoenix Suns have catapulted themselves into legitimate playoff contention. Now, once again, if you saw my video I did, I said the best landing spot for Chris Paul was going to be him going to the Phoenix Suns. That happened. Now you've got Chris Paul in that backcourt. You've got Devin Booker, you've got DeAndre Ayton, and they are not done, ladies and gentlemen. They've got a lot of cap space to be able to go out there and get some more names to come and fill out the rest of that roster. Remember, they still got Cam Johnson. They still got Bridges. They got some players over there, and I expect them to kind of maybe even look at a guy like Danilo Gallinari or maybe even a Jeremy Grant. Like they've got some more moves that they can make. So watch out for the Phoenix Suns. I love what they did. The champs got better. I think we talked about that before. The Lakers went out and traded for Dennis Schroeder. That became official as of today, as a matter of fact. So Dennis Schroeder's now with the Los Angeles Lakers, man. They got them a dog. The Lakers went out there and got an absolute bona fide dog, and I love that, man. So kudos to them. Who else would? Now some of the rumors that are out there. We got to cover the rumors that are out there. Listen, the biggest rumor. Actually, before we get to that one of the rumors that's floating out there right now, which I think would be a legitimate fix and could potentially put this team into contention status up there with that Philadelphia 76ers, with the Brooklyn Nets, that's the Boston Celtics. To me, they've got to make a move. Danny Ainge is over there hoarding these assets. It's time to make a move, Danny. And the move that's being rumored, it has not happened yet, but it's being rumored to come about is Andre Drummond from the Cleveland Cavaliers. To me, that makes so much sense. Listen, Cleveland is in a rebuild mode, right? We talked about that. They're in a rebuild mode. Kevin Love's going to be there. You know that. DeAndre Drummond, they don't have any real need for him. I mean, Cleveland's just not with him or without him. They're not a playoff team. But the Boston Celtics, if they get Andre Drummond, who's the best rebounder in the game, Andre Drummond is rebounding on a level, not saying he's as good as these guys, but he's dominating the glass as far as dominating the NBA. The way that Dennis Rodman, the way that Wilt Chamberlain dominated on the glass, meaning year after year he's winning rebounding titles, and there's nobody coming really close to competing with him as far as how he's dominating the glass. And if the Boston Celtics get Andre Drummond to go with the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and Kemba Walker, that's what they need, man. You're not going to win playing small ball. Boston Celtics tried it last year. They couldn't get to the finals. The Houston Rockets tried it. They couldn't even get to the conference finals. You're not going to win in today's NBA. I don't care, in NBA, past or present, without legitimate big men. But everybody keeps talking about the big men is becoming extinct. It's not, ladies and gentlemen. The big men are always going to be needed. You need rim protection and you need rebounders. And the big men do that the best. So if the Boston Celtics are able to pull that trade off, they would definitely jump in my power rankings as being a legitimate contender. Until they get some legitimate big men to upgrade from Daniel Tice, I can't take them truly serious as being a contender until that happens. But a team that is a contender that has got Are we back? All right. Sorry about got this internet situation I'm dealing with. Hopefully we'll be able to get this resolved so I don't keep having these connection issues. But just bear with me. We're gonna get this figured out. But nonetheless, we're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks. And we're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks in a situation where They traded for Drew Holiday. And I love the move that they were able to get Drew Holiday. However, they also had a deal in place to go and do a sign and trade to bring in Bogdanovich from the Sacramento Kings. That to me, those two deals of Bogdanovich and Drew Holiday at that guard position, Giannis, along with Giannis to be able to get a playmaker to take the ball out of Giannis's hands, to be able to give Middleton some help, Giannis some help, Brook Lopez on that front court to get them some legitimate backcourt help. Drew Holiday and Bogdanovich were almost like perfect pickups, similar to that pickups for the Philadelphia 76ers getting that backcourt shooting out there. That's exactly what the Milwaukee Bucks were doing when they went and got Drew Holiday and Bogdan. The only problem, or not, the difference is Drew Holiday is an elite defender, so they were increasing their defense while also bringing in shooting and playmaking. The problem is Bogdan, or somebody dropped the ball here. Somebody forgot to tell Bogdan that he was going to Milwaukee. And I don't know how you're going to do a sign and trade with the player and forget to tell the player, or at least get his agent to sign off. Something happened. I don't know what, but a lot of people may have missed that whole thing because the news broke during the draft. Bogdan said, no, I'm not going to Milwaukee. I'm going to be a free agent. So that means that trade that was on place, one of the two trades that I thought was going to push Milwaukee to being the best team in the East, they took a slight step back now. And they got to now figure out what they're going to do because Wesley Matthews, who's starting at that shooting guard spot, he decided he's a free agent. So they don't have Wesley Matthews. They thought they had Bogdan. They don't have him now. So I don't know what they're going to do. I have no idea what they're going to do, but they got to make some moves because the clock is ticking. Giannis still has not signed that extension. And until he signs on the dotted line, the clock is ticking. So Milwaukee, hopefully they'll be able to figure out something because that's a big loss. Losing Bogdan is a big loss because he's not only a shooter, he's not just a specialist. Bogdan can create for himself. He can create for others. He's not a primary playmaker, but he's a guy that, if you give him the ball, like for instance, if Drew Holiday's driving, attacking the paint, or if Giannis is attacking the paint, kicking out, and you kick out to Bogdan, he can catch and shoot, or he can hit you with a quick up fake and put the ball on the ground. Now he's got the defense behind him. He's got numbers in front of him. He can make a play for others or for himself. I love that move. So unfortunately, losing him, that's going to hurt the Milwaukee Bucks. But let's go to move on to this. Now the biggest news and the biggest rumors out there that we've got to discuss, it's got to be this James Harden and Houston Rockets nightmare. Like, that's all you can really call this, is an absolute nightmare. This is once again a situation where a chain of command was broken. Somebody forgot to do the proper communication through the proper channels to let your best player know, hey, you know what? We're going to make some changes, and these are the changes. They forgot to tell James Harden and potentially even Russell Westbrook that we're getting rid of to get you let James Harden understand that this is what you were doing. But the fact of the matter is, they didn't let James Harden know, and James Harden wants out now. Not only does James Harden want out, Russell Westbrook wants out. So the problem with that is that these are superstars with large contracts. So it's going to take a lot of pieces from whoever you're trading them to be able to make that deal work. And the Houston Rockets, they want a king's ransom to give up James Harden. Now, the team that he wants to go to is two teams. He wanted to go to Philadelphia 76ers or the Brooklyn Nets. Now, with the moves that Philly just made, they may have just said, we're not dealing with it. You wanted to, you're asking for too much, and so we're just going to pull out and we're going to make our own moves. And I think they did that. So I think the Philadelphia 76ers have taken themselves out of the running to even get James Harden, which leaves Brooklyn as the only destination that James Harden wants to actually go to. How is that going to work now? Because Houston is saying, listen, we're not going to make that deal unless we're getting Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant to come back in exchange for James Harden. Well, the problem is, they're not giving up Kevin Durant, and Brooklyn is very hesitant to even give up Kyrie Irving. So what happens then? They're at a stalemate right now. And Tillman Fertitta, the owner of Houston, decided to tell the world publicly, we're okay making this situation uncomfortable. If we have to start the season with both of these stars, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, on our roster, in our locker room, even despite the fact that they don't want to be here, we don't care. Now, there's some rumors that came out that said, maybe it was the fact that Tillman Fertitta supports Donald Trump. I don't want to get into the politics of all that, but if that is a situation why those two stars don't want to be there, I can understand it. But at the end of the day, this is business. It doesn't matter who your employer, who he likes, who he supports. At the end of the day, you're under contract for them. So you're either going to play for that person or you're going to retire. You're not going to get your money to just decide you're not going to play. And so both of those guys are gonna they got some situations to or decisions to make, and it's gonna be real interesting to see how that kind of shakes out. But until that happens, right now I think the Houston Rockets are in a world of trouble, man. I think they're in a world of trouble because who else other than the Brooklyn Nets? Now, granted, there's a deal that could be made between these two teams that doesn't involve Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant. Now, the deal would be Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, maybe another couple other little contract fillers, and some draft picks. To me, I think it's a decent haul. It's a decent package for James Harden. But the problem is, think about this: the Milwaukee Bucks, they gave up 3 first-round draft picks to get Drew Holiday. So if the Houston Rockets see Drew Holiday being worth 3 first-round picks, and you saw what happened with Paul George last year and how many picks they had to give up. You saw all the haul that the Lakers gave up to get Anthony Davis. Houston is like, well, listen, we got James Harden, who's a former MVP, former scoring champ. Like, we want a major haul. And I guess they figure that Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert and Jerry Allen are just not enough. I get it. I get it. But I doubt that Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant's going to be put on that table from Brooklyn. It just doesn't make sense. Kevin Durant came there to play with Kyrie. He's yet to suit up for them. He's not going to – I don't think Kevin Durant's going to sign off on shipping away Kyrie Irving. I just don't see him being underhanded like that when it was Kyrie Irving's idea for them both to go to Brooklyn. I don't see it happening, man. So unless Houston is willing to accept the smaller version of that package, they may have to go somewhere else. And then you got to decide, does James Harden want to play there? Because probably the teams that's going to be able to come up with the assets that Houston will want are going to be bad teams. Does James Harden want to go from being on a playoff team to being on a lottery team? Now, granted, he's good enough to make a lottery team better, but listen, man, both of these conferences are deep. The Golden State Warriors are about to find out how losing a star or only having one superstar is tough. It's tough, man. Like, the Golden State Warriors right now in a situation where, as we talked about earlier, the unfortunate injury to Klay Thompson, that has him out all season. Now you got one superstar left. Steph Curry's basically over there, not really by himself, but they do have Andrew Wiggins, who's a former number 1 pick who's kind of underachieved, but he's been about a 20-point per game score on a bad teams. You got Draymond Green, who's nowhere near the Draymond Green he was. Defensively, he's not as good. Offensively, he's not as good. So he's a lesser version of himself. They did just pick up James Wiseman, so they're going to expect more from James Wiseman. But how well or how good do you think that this Golden State Warriors team could be when you're one of your second best player, one of the greatest shooters of all time, is not even going to play all season for the second season in a row? So for me, Golden State, I would have ranked them in the top 4. They were going to be a top 4 team had they come back and brought their team back healthy, added James Wiseman, which I thought was a perfect pickup for them. They would have been a top 4 seed for me. Now with Klay Thompson out, best case scenario for them, they're 6th seed. To me, that's best case scenario. Like I said, we'll get into the seedings and my rankings and all that stuff once all the rosters free agency shakes out. But man, I feel bad. First of all, I feel bad for Klay Thompson. You feel extremely bad for him because he was working hard to get back, and unfortunately, he's just not going to be able to be healthy for the season. But you got to feel bad for Steph Curry, who's ready to get back and prove everybody wrong. But now he's got to do it without his backcourt mate. Now he's got to do it the way that LeBron James did it, when he was in Cleveland the first time. He's got to do it the way that Kobe Bryant did it, when he was with the Lakers before Paul Gasol got there. He's got to do it the way that Damian Lillard has been trying to do it for many years. You got to kind of do it as the only superstar. And we got to see, can you make the playoffs in the Western Conference with Andrew Wiggins as your second scorer? Ooh, that doesn't even sound right. Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins are maybe James Wiseman could be a superstar next year. I don't think he will, but maybe he could turn into that next year. They're gonna need that. Steph Curry needs help, man. We saw in the finals where Kevin Durant got hurt in 2019 against the Toronto Raptors. We saw Kevin Durant go down. Then we saw Klay Thompson go down, and we saw Steph Curry look around like, where's the help? Where everybody? I mean, they're running boxer one on me. Like, everybody's just focused on me, and his efficiency was down. It was tough for him to score. Like, Steph Curry is elite. Don't get me wrong, he's elite, but no player's ever won it by themselves, right? You need a legitimate team and legitimate talent around you. Steph Curry just doesn't have it. The Golden State Warriors bench is just not what it needs to be. So the Warriors got a lot of work to do, and unfortunately, they don't have a lot of cap space Remember, free agency starts tomorrow. So some of these teams that are, or these fringe teams, they're going to get better. Teams like the Phoenix Suns are going to get better. I got the Phoenix Suns as in that 6 to 8 range. I think that the Phoenix Suns are going to be a playoff team. I think the Dallas Mavericks are going to be a playoff team. There's a lot of teams out there. The Portland Trailblazers, they should be better. They got Nurkic back who's healthy. Maybe, Zach Collins, hopefully he'll get a little healthy. They just picked up Robert Covington from the Houston Rockets. As Houston Rockets are starting to blow this thing up. They picked up Robert Covington. So there's teams in the West that are getting better while the Golden State Warriors just got drastically worse. So that's a tough situation for Klay personally, but for the franchise as a whole and their fan base, well, the true fans, those bandwagon fans, I don't really care about them, but the true fans of Golden State, I feel bad for them, man, because this was the year they were really hoping to see their backcourt healthy, to see what they could do to compete in the West. So once again, we got free agency coming tomorrow. Some of the other names you want to kind of keep an eye out there for. Toronto Raptors got some decisions they got to make as well. Serge Ibaka is a guy and a big name that some contenders are definitely going to be wanting to look at. Two perfect spots for Serge Ibaka, I think, is both of them are in LA. I think the Clippers more so than the Lakers need Serge Ibaka. The Lakers would be, if the Lakers get Serge Ibaka, to me, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. But Serge Ibaka, I think, is a name to keep an eye out on come tomorrow, because if he goes to the Clippers, they need a big man who can defend the rim and stretch out the defense on offense. See, understand this. Montrezl Harrell was not a rim protector. Montrezl Harrell was not a three-point shooter. Same thing with Zubac. Zubac, even though he was a rim protector, he was a little slower footed, so he wasn't able to really guard the pick and roll as well. So he kind of, limited on how well he could be able to stay on the court. So he had to limit his minutes. So they need a guy who can be a 3-and-D from the big man spot. That's what they need. They need a Brook Lopez type big man, right? That's why he works so well with Giannis, because he's able to protect the paint on defense, and on offense he can still space the floor out. You don't know if you need him in the post, he can score in the post, but you really want him spacing the floor. He would be perfect for the Clippers. But the Lakers have a lot of interest in him from what I'm hearing. Now, that's going to be dependent on what they decide to do with they being the Lakers, what they decide to do with Dwight Howard. News broke today that JaVale McGee decided he's going to opt into his contract. So that means that the starting big man spot alongside of Anthony Davis has decided he's coming back. Now, who's going to be that backup big man? It's going to be Dwight Howard. Is he going to return? He said he wants to come back. From all the words that I've been hearing, the Lakers want him back. He wants to come back. The only question is, Dwight Howard has said, listen, I want to come back. I want to stay with the Lakers, but I'm not going to do it and play for free. He basically played for free last year on a non-guaranteed contract, where he basically was just like a trial letter to say, listen, I'm going to show you what I got. He wants a deal, and he wants a long-term deal. Long-term meaning, a guaranteed money for at least a year or two, right? He wants that, and I think he deserved that. I think he's earned that. So it'll be real interesting to see what the Lakers decide to do with Dwight Howard. Rajon Rondo is another name you got to watch out for. Rajon Rondo is interested in two teams, they say, the Atlanta Hawks and the LA Clippers. Now, he can make a lot of money if he decides he wants to go to the Atlanta Hawks, and I think that, to me, would be a great fit, because they're one of those fringe playoff teams on the East next year, I believe. They could get into that, 7th, maybe 8th seed. I think the top 6 are pretty much locked. But the 7th, 8th seed, I think, is open next year. So they could be one of those teams. Or he can decide to say, listen, I don't necessarily want to be a mentor to Trae Young. I don't necessarily want to be a backup to Trae Young. I would rather be a starter. And if he goes to the LA Clippers, who, once again, another thing the Clippers need, not only as the rim protection and that big man who can shoot from the outside that we just discussed with Serge Ibaka, they also need a true, legitimate facilitating point guard. Patrick Beverley is a 3-and-D point guard. They need somebody who can create shots for Kawhi Leonard, someone who can create shots for Paul George to make the game easier on them. And we know playoff Rondo is a real thing. I've been trying to tell everybody who did not understand that playoff Rondo is a real thing. He's the only player in NBA history to ever win a championship with the Boston Celtics and the LA Lakers. The LA Lakers. Rondo did that. So, and he was the third best player in the playoffs for the Lakers. So, listen, man, I think he would be a great addition for either one of those teams. He's another name to watch out for. Danilo Gallinari. He's another name with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Listen, like I said, Sam Presti is over there, and he's blowing this thing up, and he's hoarding assets, getting as many draft picks as he can for years to come. And so Danilo Gallinari is another name who's now on that free agency, a block to say, listen, he could go anywhere. The Lakers could potentially have interest in him. The Phoenix Suns, I think, would be a perfect fit for him, or he could decide to go east. It's teams over there that, like, once again, you got the Charlotte Hornets, right? You've got the New York Knicks, you got the Detroit Pistons, you got the Atlanta Hawks. These are a lot of different teams that are gonna. It's only a few teams that are going to have cap space, right? The big four teams that are starting tomorrow are going to have the most cap space are the Atlanta Hawks, the Detroit Pistons. You're going to have the New York Knicks, and as well as the Charlotte Hornets. So these teams here, they've got cap space, and they're ready to spend that money. Now, there's rumors that potentially the Houston Rockets wanting to trade Russell Westbrook could potentially trade him to the Knicks or the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I don't like him in the Charlotte Hornets. I'm going to be honest with you. The Charlotte Hornets, to me, the fact that they just drafted LaMelo Ball, I do not want Russell Westbrook stunting the growth of a LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball, he's too good for Russ to come in there. And once again, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on Russ, because Russ is one of my top two favorite players in the entire NBA today. But Russ is Russ. Everybody knows how Russ is and his mentality, and that's not what you want to have around LaMelo Ball, because the ball needs the ball in his hand, no pun intended. But Russell Westbrook does as well. You know what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily like that fit. I would like to see Russell Westbrook go to New York, especially with Obi Toppin over there, with Mitchell Robinson, with R.J. Barrett. Oh, man, with Knox. I don't know. Now, they would have to give up something, so I don't know what of those pieces would have to go. But I would love to see Russell Westbrook and Obi Toppin. Could you imagine those two athletic monsters in the fast break? Oh, my goodness. That you want to talk about bringing Showtime from the West Coast to Madison Square Garden? Let that trade actually go through. So it's a lot going on, man. Listen, I appreciate everybody who decided to come and take a look at this live session, man. Hopefully, like I say, next time, for those who are watching that were unable to participate in the Q&A, listen, go ahead and hit that join now button. What you get when you join up with the members only section, not only will you be able to participate in answering questions in this live Q&A session, but also you'll be in a situation where you'll have access to my cooking channel, where we've already dropped one episode, and we got the second episode coming up next week, where I'm prepping. I personally, I'm inviting you into my kitchen where I'm cooking, I'm giving you recipes, and we're talking about basketball. This is what we love. We're ballaholics. So if you haven't signed up already, hit that join now button. You do not want to miss that, because the NBA season, remember this, folks, December 1st training camp starts. December 22nd, the NBA season is back. And then Christmas Day game, which is the biggest games of the season, are right around the corner. So you do not want to miss that. Go ahead and hit that join now button. Until next time, man, everybody, y'all stay safe out there in those streets. And listen, make sure that you come back tomorrow, as I will continuously be dropping my regular videos every Monday, every Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss it. Until then, be safe. Peace.